Hello, everybody. What up, guys? Kanye5 here. Wavy print versus glossy print. This is the age-old debate, or should I say the debate that most of you guys probably don't care about, but for those intense, hardcore, bonerific collectors, they care about the cardstock. So when I'm saying wavy versus glossy, I'm referring to the cardstock of the card. I'm just covering the first edition Legend of Blue Eyes set. Wavy and glossy cards were only used to produce Legend of Blue Eyes first edition, as well as some unlimited and also some Starter Deck Kaiba and Starter Deck Yugi cards. After that, no cards produced were wavy or glossy in the exact same way. Have you ever heard of the term first print LOB? Well, that is a myth. The term first print generally refers to the wavy version of Legend of Blue Eyes, as you can see, the very wavy cardstock. So that is generally referred to as first print. However, in this video, that will be completely debunked. I'm going to prove as best as I can. There's obviously no definitive way of proving, but I'm going to show all the evidence that I can to show how wavy print was actually printed either second or at the same time. So first off, I want to kind of detail what exactly I'm referring to. What the hell is a glossy print and what the hell is a wavy print? So this is a glossy print card. You can see the whole card is just so glossy. It's very flat, and the entire card is covered in gloss. And this is the wavy print version of the same card. You can see how there's vertical ripples going through the entire card. So here's a quick comparison. All wavy print cards have all around just darker ink. As you can see, the card is darker and the text is just printed with bolder ink. And the image of the card actually is just a little darker for the wavy print. And here are some more examples. As you can see, this is a glossy print, Swords of Revealing Light. And here is a wavy print. These are all North American, by the way. Asian English cards did not have this printing variation. This only applied to North American English. German cards, French cards, Spanish, all of them also just had one cardstock used. You can see the whole card just has vertical waves going through it. And this is the glossy version, much more shiny and just like a flat surface. And you can see the text is darker for the wavy print version. Here are just a few more examples so you really get the hang of what the hell I'm talking about today. Got the glossy on the left and the wavy on the right. Once again, very flat surface on this polymerization. And overall, just a very shiny card. And on the right, we have the wavy print version. You see those ripples going through the entire card vertically. We got vertical ripples, and the text is a bit darker on the wavy print version. And now let's take a look at some ultra rares. So here we have a glossy print Gaia. Super glossy card all around. And here is a wavy print. Now another very characteristic feature about wavy print ultra rares is that oftentimes you will see the name slightly lowered on the title box. That is not always true, but oftentimes you will see that. As you can see, the horse itself, the color of the horse is darker on the wavy print, and the text on the card is also darker all around. And the whole card is kind of just darker. And just a few more examples here. We have some graded cards. Here we have a right leg. This is very glossy, as you can see. And here is a wavy print right leg. And you can see the name is lowered slightly. Not all wavy print ultras have the lower name, but most of them do. It's not really like a major misprint or anything, it's just how they were printed. And you can definitely tell a pretty big difference there. Just one more example I'll show you guys. We got Red Eyes. Here is a very glossy Red Eyes. And here is a wavy Red Eyes. So hopefully you guys can see the difference. Once you start looking at these cards more and more, you'll start to see them very easily. Those are the objective differences between the print runs that we are referring to. By tradition, people have been referring to wavy print cards as quote-unquote first print, and I will make my case now for why I believe that is a misnomer. So for glossy print Legend of Blue Eyes booster boxes or booster packs, you can either pull Trihorn Dragon or Gaia the Dragon Champion. Very interesting thing to note is that Gaia the Dragon Champion does not exist as wavy print first edition. It literally does not exist. Trihorn, on the other hand, came in both glossy print as well as wavy print. Kind of hard to see for Trihorn, but the PSA graded copy is wavy and this one is glossy. So for LOB wavy print, the only secret rare you could pull is Trihorn Dragon, while for glossy print you can pull either one of these. So let's say they actually released the wavy print version first. Now that would mean you can only pull a Trihorn and there's no chance of getting a Gaia the Dragon Champion. That makes absolutely no sense because Gaia is actually just fundamentally part of the LOB set. So this card was advertised as part of the LOB set as LOB 125 in the North American print. So it just would not make any sense that they would release a version of the set with no Gaia first and then after that reprint the set to include Gaia. So it would make more sense to me logically that they would print the full set first and then later on potentially print the wavy print version as kind of like a extended release just because of how successful the first release was. But that's just more conjecture. Just look at the facts for now is that Glossy has the entire set including Gaia, while the wavy print version only has Trihorn for secret rares and no Gaia. Next thing I want to look at is Starter Deck YuGi and Starter Deck Kaiba. The first edition versions were released at the end of March of 2002, and Legend of Blue Eyes was released early March of 2002. Interesting thing to note, every single first edition copy of Starter Deck YuGi or Starter Deck Kaiba is printed in the glossy print cardstock. Here I have a Soul Exchange just for reference. This type of gloss is exactly the same as the LOB one. Exact same. There are no wavy print Starter Deck YuGi or Starter Deck Kaiba cards in first edition that exist. None at all. You can find wavy print in Unlimited, but not first edition. Now, there are unlimited glossy print as well. So oftentimes they will just print out a sheet of, let's say Soul Exchange, for example, and then half of them will be stamped with the first edition and half not. So it doesn't surprise me that there are unlimited glossy as well. But the fact that there are no first edition wavy print Starter Deck YuGi or Kaiba is quite intriguing. However, there are wavy print unlimited. So that makes me think the glossy versions were printed first along with the Starter Deck cards, and then after that they decided to print the wavy print versions, but that was a little bit later, and at that point the first edition Starter Deck YuGi and Kaiba already came out, so they just printed the unlimited versions for wavy print. Now I want to bring your attention to an even bigger piece of evidence. This evidence right here was actually provided to me by YuGiOh Tube. Very, very cool channel. He has some awesome openings, market watch videos, PSA videos, just everything vintage, old school, just the sexy galore. So definitely check him out. I am subscribed because he got that dang shit. He recently bought one of these sample summon skulls. So what is this card? This card is a sample promotional card for Upper Deck. So it was distributed internally within Upper Deck and prospective Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG retailers. So this is actually the first ever TCG Yu-Gi-Oh! Card that was internally released, I would say. And this came out December 2001. That is 3 months before the release of LOB in North America. So that is very interesting to know. And guess what cardstock this card is? This card is actually the glossy cardstock of Legend of Blue Eyes that you see. Now that, in my opinion, is probably one of the strongest pieces of evidence that glossy print actually came first. So this is indeed probably the first ever TCG card released. And it even says right here, the front of the card is glossy like an OCG card, and the back has sample printed diagonally. So basically, 3 months before the release of LOB, we have a sample card provided internally within UDE and also to potential retailers that would sell Yu-Gi-Oh! Just to see, what these cards are all about. It happens with every card game pretty much. The cardstock used for that card was glossy, and that was 3 months before LOB was released. So that makes me think definitely glossy print was the first print being used. That was the print that was being used even before LOB came out. So that is just huge evidence, in my opinion, that glossy print indeed came first, or maybe it was printed at least the same time as wavy print. Next up, let's talk about booster boxes. So one telltale sign of whether or not you'll be getting glossy print cards or wavy print cards in your booster box is you look at the first edition logo on the booster box. In this particular example, we have glossy print LOB. Every single pack in this box will have glossy print LOB cards. One major sign is the first edition logo and how it is a bigger font. You can see how the font is quite large and is quite wide. Now let's look at the wavy print boxes. This is an example of a wavy print box. Every single card in this box will be wavy print guaranteed. And you can see here, the first edition sign is smaller. The glossy print version, the first edition logo kind of goes all the way here. It will be larger. This is the glossy print. This is the wavy print. Glossy print, wavy print. Now let's look at the next set that came out, Metal Raiders. Every single Metal Raiders booster box first edition had their logo look like this. And if you look closely, that is identical to the wavy print Legend of Blue Eyes, which is different from the glossy print. Now let's look at the third set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic Ruler first edition. We have the first edition symbol. Once again, it is small font, just like the Metal Raiders and the wavy print Legend of Blue Eyes. Let's fast forward a few sets, go all the way to Invasion of Chaos. Small first edition font, but different from glossy print Legend of Blue Eyes. Now, what does that mean? What does that imply? It does not make any sense for them to print the wavy print version with this design on the box, and then all of a sudden switch to this version, and then every subsequent set, they go back to the original wavy print version. What makes more sense, in my opinion, would be that they printed the box with this design, with the first edition like this, and then they had an extended release of the first edition just because the set probably sold really well and they wanted to print more cards. And so this was the quote-unquote second release, and they kind of modified the design of the box a little bit to have the first edition symbol look like that. And then after that, they just went with that. And then you can see, MRD, MRL, Invasion of Chaos. Another interesting thing to note, there are a lot of Legend of Blue Eyes first edition counterfeit boxes and cards in circulation, so definitely be careful. But one good thing to know is that no glossy print counterfeit boxes exist, at least that I know of. Every single counterfeit booster box of LOB is one with the small first edition logo, basically imitating the wavy print cards. So how would you interpret that? Well, there's different ways to interpret it, but my personal theory is that glossy print cards were released first with this booster box, and then obviously it did really well. So they decided to release an extended print run of first edition just because, they were getting sold out everywhere and maybe retailers wanted more. So they decided to print LOB first ed again, but this time they had a wavy cardstock. Maybe that's what was available, or just it was a cheaper cardstock with this logo. And then we have imitators that see how well and how successful the game is doing. So they decided to get a hold of one of these extended release boxes and basically counterfeit them. Now, it wouldn't really make much sense for there to be so many counterfeits of Legend of Blue Eyes upon its first release, because at that time, I mean, imitators don't know whether or not they should, spend the time and money to make fake copies of this trading card game that just came out. However, my theory is that, Glossy print came out, it did really well. They made Wavy print, and imitators saw how well the Legend of Blue Eyes was doing, so they got a hold of Legend of Blue Eyes, and at the time, it was the Wavy print that was coming out, and they decided to counterfeit the Wavy print. So obviously, this is not like a conscious decision, like, hey, we're gonna counterfeit just the Wavy print. Back then, no one gave a freaking rat's ass about the cardstock. No one cared about the cardstock used. It's not until now that us anal collectors are caring so much about the cardstock used. Now let's take a look at arguments for why Wavy print came first. So one of them was people just saying they remember cards being wavy when they first ever bought LOB, when the set came out. And so they think Wavy print was the first ever release. I highly doubt people cared about cardstock back then. Like, literally no one cared. So I don't know. Based on just straight memory recall, I wouldn't really trust that piece of evidence too much. I wouldn't really even call it evidence. And another point, after LOB, we see a lot more glossy cards, but we don't see that wavy cardstock anymore. However, I'm going to debunk that right now by looking at MRD, for example. Sure, the card is not super wavy. However, it is also not glossy. It is more of like a combination between wavy and glossy print cards. So as you can see here, this is a very glossy card. Whereas for the Kazagen here, you see it's kind of rippled, but not in the exact same way as Legend of Blue Eyes wavy print per se. It's basically like a morph of the two prints of LOB. And that is what they used for the cardstock for pretty much the remaining original sets. Here's a Serpent Knight Dragon from MRL, and you can see there is texture to the card. It is not the same as the glossy print of LOB. It does have ripples, but not in the same manner as wavy print LOB. So my point is the cardstock for sets after LOB, they do not perfectly resemble glossy print LOB or wavy print LOB. So this point that people make trying to prove that wavy print came first is completely invalid in my opinion. And the last point I hear people make when they say wavy print came first is that the cardstock of wavy print was just low quality and looks like water damage. The back is not wavy. Is just smooth, but the front looks like it has water damage. And the glossy print, according to people that think wavy print came first, the glossy print is just much more refined and high quality and just a smooth looking clean card, whereas wavy print looks like it has water damage. Personally, I actually even prefer the wavy print cardstock. I think it looks cooler. It has that vintage feel to it. I like how the text is darker and how the artwork is darker. I personally don't think they would discard all these wavy prints just because of the cardstock. This is simply the cardstock used. I don't think it was water damage or anything like that. But anyways, these are actually the main arguments for the proponents of wavy print came first. There is much less evidence or less valid evidence, in my personal opinion, that wavy print was actually printed first. And there's so much more evidence, as I presented in this video, that this is actually the cardstock that came first, or they actually were printed at the same time. There's nothing to really prove they didn't get printed at the same time, but if I had to bet on something, I would say the glossy print actually was printed first. Now, talking about the current price points of glossy versus wavy print cards. Currently, for the most part, wavy print cards demand a premium over glossy print. Now, what is the reason for that? Is that because people think wavy print came first? If that is the reason, then this price point is completely unjustified in my opinion, because there's just so much more evidence saying the glossy print actually came first. But I think the biggest driving factor of the price, if it's not because people think this was printed first, it's because wavy print might actually be scarcer in number. So according to my theory, glossy print was mass produced first, and then they saw how well it did. And then after that, they produced the wavy print versions in probably smaller quantities compared to the glossy print version. There's no way of really telling how much lower quantities, or even if it was released in a lower quantity. But you definitely see glossy print cards pop up more on eBay, for example, than wavy print. Of course, that's not really objective evidence for anything. Maybe people just see the hype of wavy print and they want to hold on to it. That's also a possibility. But it seems for the time being that wavy print cards are a tiny bit scarcer. So maybe that might justify the price difference between these two. But I just want to make that point clear that wavy print cards most likely were not printed before glossy print cards. Now looking at the future and the prices of these cards, I do strongly believe that glossy print cards and wavy print cards will become much more similar in price, meaning the gap between these price points will become much more narrow. As it sits right now, wavy print cards have about a 30% or so premium on glossy print cards. Now, I do think this variation in Legend of Blue Eyes is kind of similar to the thick stamp and thin stamp first edition base set Pokemon cards. And over time, I think you will see the prices of these cards kind of even out, because one of them came first and one of them is scarcer. So, there's arguments for why either one should be more expensive, but I think overall, I think both of these should be around the same price. Glossy print first edition PSA 10 Blue Eyes White Dragon is about $6,000 right now, and people are projecting the wavy print to be worth about $8,000. So that's like a $2,000 difference just because of the cardstock being used. But it is a fact that the PSA 10 wavy print Blue Eyes exist in much smaller numbers. So that might be the main reason. That's about it for this long video. Hopefully you guys learned something, and please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Which one came first? Does it matter? And what you guys think will happen to the prices of these cards, and if the premium on wavy print cards is justified. So, but yes, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.